Hello and welcome to Expats Everywhere. If you could tell us your name, where you're from, and a little about yourself.
Hey, my name is Chantae. I'm from San Diego, California, and I've been living in Fiji for 2 years with my partner and yeah, kind of enjoying the island lifestyle.
Awesome. And is Fiji the only country that you've worked in outside of the US?
Before Fiji, I lived 5 years in Western Australia.
Okay.
Right before getting here, I was there for 5 years, and then I've also worked a bit in Indonesia, back and forth when I was living in Australia.
Nice. Well, in general, what's it like working in Fiji?
Generally, working in Fiji is pretty laid back. There's a lot of work for NGO workers, embassy workers, companies as a base in the Pacific. It's a lot of work. Relationships are built through networking and sort of getting to know each other. So that's a big part of Pacific culture, work culture.
Nice. Well, you kind of touched on the next question, but I'm just going to go ahead and ask it. What kinds of jobs are available for English-speaking expats?
So if you're coming into Fiji, English is one of their 3 languages, and it's typically the one used in business. There's a lot of work in conservation for conservationists, especially with development programs. There's a lot of work for embassy workers. There's work for corporations that are based in Fiji to kind of contact the rest of the South Pacific, because aside from New Zealand, Australia, and Hawaii, Fiji is the largest South Pacific city or community with Suva. So you'll be working a lot probably with other Pacific Island nations as a base in Fiji.
What does a typical day look like at your job?
For me, because I don't work in Fiji, I work actually for companies outside of Fiji. I go to them in Asia or Australia, complete my work, and then I come back and finish up here. But my partner works as an oceanographer in Fiji, and his typical day isn't really the same. Some days he might be on the field working as an oceanographer, studying the reefs along the coastline of Fiji or in another Pacific Island nation, and then coming back to his base in Suva and processing the data there with his coworkers and teammates.
Okay. What are the typical work hours? What do people do in the evenings? That type of thing.
Typical work hours are from 8 to 4 or 9 to 5, though you'll probably find that most people are working on large projects that take them outside of those hours. They're often based somewhere else on like an outer island, so you're never really off work, which then your work life blends into your personal life. It's really common to catch up with coworkers and drink kava, which is kind of a relaxing drink, and you might chat about your work and then mix a bit of your personal stories and socialize as well. So there's not really a strict work-life line. Most people kind of blend together.
Okay, so outside of NGO work or working on marine biology or something to do with the ocean, do you find many expats that are working in the service industry, hospitality industry? Or is it mainly Fijians are doing those jobs?
I noticed that when you were on your trip to Fiji, you guys noticed the locals working in hospitality. That's pretty correct. Hospitality and service industry tends to be pretty local. You might find an expat working as, say, a dive instructor in the scuba diving industry, or maybe in a specialist position like communications or management of a resort, but it's typically found that resorts are managed and run by locals.
Okay. How much can someone expect to earn there?
This is a pretty wide range because the minimum wage in Fiji legally is only $1 per hour. So if you're on a local salary or a local wage, you might have quite a small salary, or in comparison to international workers who are brought in on what's commonly called a package deal, which a package deal, they're enticing more specialists that they don't have any capacity in the country already to do. So they're bringing you over on a large package with insurance benefits, housing allowance, and probably a large salary. And in that case, you're more looking at your rent covered plus another $3,000 US a month or more. But again, this ranges because some people come in as volunteers on really small salaries, or some people come in as like high diplomatic workers on super high salaries. So it's a huge range.
I'm guessing I know your answer on this, but I'm just going to ask it anyways. Do you think that $3,000 is enough per month to live on, and what kind of lifestyle can you live?
So I think that $3,000 you could live. It depends on your standards, but if you want to find an apartment or maybe share an apartment that's like held to a caliber that you're used to at home, you're probably going to pay around $1,000 US in rent. And then if you eat local, you can do that very affordably. Produce, I mean, you get a pile of mangoes for $2 US, tomatoes, a huge pile for $1 US or something like that. So if you stick to local produce, local products, and traveling with bus, you can get across the whole island for less than $15 US. That's going to be like an 8-hour journey if you want to go the whole thing, or 3 hours if you 3 to 4.5 hours if you just want to cut through half. That's $7 US on a bus. And then in town taxi rides are $2 to $3 US or 75 cents US. So you can live very cheaply and affordably. But if your lifestyle, you want to go to the outer islands and experience kind of the luxury life, then you're going to be spending a lot at the resorts, and cars are expensive here. So yeah, you can scale. I think 3,000, definitely a lot of expats do it and are very happy with that. So
okay, so if you're making 3,000, how much of that can you save?
I would say you could probably comfortably save about 1,000 a month. If you're, again, kind of living more off the produce and not visiting a resort every weekend or buying all these imported products at the grocery store. If you're kind of staying local, then you can save a lot.
Right. How much money do you need to start up there? So what are your startup costs like?
If you're coming in with all of your stuff, you're then probably going to need to go straight into an apartment versus kind of waiting out in a hotel. I would say you'd want at least 2 months rent. So that would be a minimum of, well, I think $2,000, and then maybe another 1,000 for cushioning while you find your feet. If you come in just with your suitcase, which you can live really minimally here, then you might be able to kind of be more agile and stay at cheaper hotels for a month or two and then sort out your life from there.
Okay.
I'm not a good example because I'm fine with just arriving with, I don't know, very little plan and backup and winging it. So
no, that's great. I mean, everybody kind of has their own approach, but it's good to know maybe what to expect, or at least that it's possible to do that. It's possible to wing it. It's also possible to roll in there with several $1,000s and slow play it. Well, tell us, how should someone pack to move there, and what's the weather like?
The weather in Suva, where I live, is super rainy, super humid. We're the most rainy city in Fiji. It's not uncommon to have it completely pour for a few hours and then be sunny later in the day, but it's always pretty warm. Definitely don't bring anything sentimental because the humidity and heat can get to it. So if you're only here for a few years, leave all your really sentimental items probably with family members at home. Pack really lightweight clothing. You won't need thick sweaters or coats. I only wear my sweater to the movie theater. And bring your technology because it's really expensive and hard to find here. So if your laptops, cameras, everything that you want to bring. Alcohol is also really expensive. So when you arrive and if you want to drink, then max out your duty free at the airport and then bring that in as well. But other than that, especially in Suva, you can kind of get the basics of everything.
Is there anything that you can't find there you recommend people should bring?
Again, the tech, it will be really hard to find. And if there's any medications, sometimes the pharmacies go out for a while and they might not have the specific brand you want or need. So definitely like your essentials you want to bring over with you. If you're a woman and you're like really attached to a certain type of makeup or something, you want to bring that in because it's going to be hard to find the brands you like. But general stuff you can find. It might be marked up. So yeah, but everyone is fine living here in the city especially, so you'll find the basics. It just might not be what you're used to. Okay.
We're going to switch gears and we're going to talk about safety, but I want to give our viewers a little bit of context about this. So I actually came across an article that you wrote because you're a blogger, a very good blogger, if I may add. And
oh, thanks.
And there was something that really struck me when you talked about your first 10 days and your first impressions of Fiji, and you kind of touched on a bit of safety. So let's talk about that. Is it safe there, and did you feel safe on a personal level?
The biggest safety concerns are going to be more around theft and petty crime than probably like violent crime. The only violent crime I find will be there will be from stray dogs. If you're running around in the neighborhoods away from like the heavily trafficked areas, that's my number one fear, is getting bit by a dog. And I do know people who have been bit by dogs. In the city, it's pretty safe if you act how you would in any main city, which don't flash your belongings, don't make yourself an obvious target, don't get too drunk and walk around alone at night. But as a general rule, locals will look out for you, and it's more common for you to go into a market and locals, if they see you're an outsider, they kind of warn you to keep your stuff close so you don't get pickpocketed, more so than actually getting pickpocketed. And then home theft, or like home invasions for theft, those are kind of common in Suva. So a lot of properties have security guards or like bars on the windows, just because theft is one of the biggest crimes, I guess.
And how about staying safe whenever you're going out for the night?
I would say stay in a group of friends. People can get kind of handsy, especially later in the night. Definitely don't bring any of your best belongings or jewelry or anything, and don't keep a lot of cash on you, because if you're drunk and you seem like it and you're an easy target, then you probably will be targeted just anywhere, including Suva.
So that's like normal common sense stuff that we would recommend everybody, right? Anywhere they travel.
In major city, I act the same. Yeah, and actually, like day-to-day life, I feel much safer than in most large cities, because yeah, there's really a sense of kind of looking out for you. When you're on a bus or something, it's really common for a local to offer to watch your bag if you're traveling alone while you use the bathroom, and they genuinely want you to have a good time while you're here.
Beautiful.
So, yeah, it's pretty safe, and there's guns are illegal and stuff like that, so you don't worry about that.
Okay. How do you meet people, and what can you do for fun?
Meeting other expats is really, really easy in Suva, because it's such a large expat community and everyone's in the same boat of wanting to make friends. And then you can meet them just by everyone adds each other to this chat or this Facebook group. And once you know one person, they kind of invite you to everything. Meeting locals can be a little bit more challenging, just because like most expats are here on a temporary contract. I don't even necessarily want to meet someone just for 6 months, and then it kind of hurts when they leave and you have to say goodbye to this friendship. But you can find locals, friends at fitness classes, like any activities. They're really inclusive, and that's how you can break in. Or if you meet a couple that's half local, half expat, and then kind of find their local friends as well. So meeting people is super easy. For fun, a lot of socializing, dinners. If you're into adventure activities, there's scuba diving, surfing, free diving, hiking. There's a lot of artwork and a lot of music. Like Fijians are really musical, so there's tons to do here. It might not be like the huge concerts that come into major cities or big art galleries, but there's definitely enough to keep you busy. And the social life is really easy to get into.
Very cool. Could you tell us a bit about the visa process? What is the visa process like?
So there's a few different visa options. One is you're usually linked to your work contract. So your work will arrange your visa and the length of your stay and who can come along with you. If you have kids or a spouse or partner, then they'll bring that in. And that will be like typically linked. If you're offered a 2-year contract, then your visa is only valid for that. There's an investment visa if you want to invest in Fiji. I think there's more like a retirement visa, I believe, but I'm not sure about all of these. You'd have to check the immigration site directly or talk to them. And then there's also a study visa if you want to come in and attend the university. There's a really great university, the University of South Pacific in Suva, and some people come in on that and then try and get jobs after completing their degree here.
Okay, great. Well, we'll put the links in the description below so people can check that out, the government website. If you could tell us, how is the healthcare, and when you feel comfortable getting a procedure done there?
There are major hospitals and there are doctors who are held to international standards in Suva. I know a really great dentist, so I would probably be okay with getting dental work done there. But anything major, I personally would probably fly to Australia, where I'm more familiar and comfortable with their level of healthcare, just because the public healthcare could use some improvement. And then the private healthcare as well, it can be a bit hit or miss depending on which doctors in the country, because many times they're only visiting for 3 or 4 months, and then they might be out in training outside of the country. So timing your procedure to who you trust to do that procedure is a challenge. So I would leave personally.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. Do you think that Fiji is a good travel hub? Why or why not?
Fiji is definitely a good travel hub for the South Pacific. We are remote globally, but we're 6 hours from Hawaii, I think 4 or 5 from east coast of Australia. And then Nandi, the international airport of Fiji, has flights to a lot of the other South Pacific countries like Tuvalu. Maybe not that many tourists will go there, but Vanuatu, Tonga, Samoa, just like New Caledonia, lots of South Pacific nations. And Fiji Airways is one of the main airlines. So you might probably, even if you're going to Tonga, there's a good chance you'll stop in Fiji anyway. So you might as well enjoy Fiji on your way somewhere else.
Okay, great. I'm glad you brought up Nandi. So when we arrived, we thought it was Nadi.
Yeah.
Are there any other?
That's common. In Fiji, in Fijian, there's a silent N before the D, but everyone will still know what you mean. Like, I still mispronounce things all the time. So, yeah.
Well, I was going to ask you, are there any words that people should know before they arrive that you would recommend?
Bula you can use kind of in any situation, and you'll hear like Fijians just scream Bula. It's like hello, or when you drink. Taki
like
is
cheers?
when you're having kava. Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Okay.
And then a taki is when you have kava, which is that relaxing drink made of pepper root. You like take a swig, and that's called taki. But even if you're drinking beer, sometimes you have a beer in a shot glass, and the shot glass goes around the group, and it's taking a taki. Mode, which is spelled M-O-C-E, so it's another one to easily get caught up on the pronunciation. Mode means like see you later, and vinaka is thank you, and yeah. So, but you can get by with English as well. But everyone's going to be excited if you say it super enthusiastically, any of those words.
Awesome, I love it. All right, well, wrapping up, if you could tell us, what are the pros and cons of living in Fiji?
The pros, like I said, it's really easy to make friends. It's awesome when you escape for the weekend. If you're working a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, there's plenty of weekend trips, and there's lots of long weekends to see the outer islands, which have incredible coral reefs and marine wildlife, and just usually such friendly people and villages like based on those islands. So that's a huge pro. And the Fijian culture is just really accepting. And if you're in Suva, you won't be seen as a tourist and therefore not really treated. You're just kind of treated like everyone else, and you can be a little bit more included in things. And then the cons for me are being away from family. Sometimes the convenience of not having like everything consumerist at my reach. I don't know. I just get frustrated sometimes, but it's not a big deal. And I would say the rain in Suva is a huge con, because I love sunshine and it rains a lot and people don't realize when they move, or I didn't. So yeah, I would say those are the main ones. And just like the level of, I miss going for a run and not being worried about dogs.
Okay. Well, before we let you go, we really appreciate this. Before we let you go, if people want to know more about you and what you do on your blog, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, yeah, thanks for having me. It's been so fun to talk about Fiji, and I love your channel. If people want to find out more about what it's like to live in Fiji, they can go to my website. It's chantae.com. So I think you can link it, because CHANTAE.com. Yeah, and my Instagram, ChantaeWasHere. I also post like a lot of stories and Fiji drone shots on there.
Oh, love it. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you. Thanks for coming on Expats Everywhere.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.